welcome to the Parents Math Tutor. I'm a Texas-based teacher with over 21 years of experience. The most common question I get every year from parents is that they don't understand how to do their child's math homework. So that's why I'm here. I'm here to help you and your child get better at math. It's like free math tutoring. Please leave a like and subscribe, and let's get into the lesson. Hi parents, welcome back to the Parents Math Tutor. Today we're going to start tackling one of the harder concepts in math for children of all ages. But for early elementary school, we are going to start talking about word problems. So word problems are when you have a tiny little story and you have to figure out what the story is telling you to do with the numbers, what operation, adding or subtracting, and then you also have to solve. If you are looking at the standards that this covers, these are the TEEPs that we are covering today for word problems. Okay, in order to solve a word problem, your kid has to be able to do so many things before they can actually start solving. So the foundational skills that need to come before solving word problems would be the ability to read the problems, because math is usually just numbers, and now we're throwing a story in there. And so they'll need the ability to read the problems. They will need the ability to identify all important numbers, and that includes taking out unnecessary information, so identifying what numbers you are actually discussing in the problem. They have to be able to visualize the problem in their mind like a little movie, and that movie in their mind will help them know what operation that they need to use to solve it, whether it's adding or subtracting. We do not teach keywords anymore. So back in the day, we used to say, okay, if you see the word all together, that means to add, or if you see the word left, that means to subtract. But really, that's not a reliable mathematical way to know what you're doing with the problem. So instead, we need to visualize the problem and talk about if numbers are being joined or separating, and not relying on those keywords. The kids have to have a way to organize their thoughts. That might be by making a chart or a table. I'm going to show you something called a strip diagram. That is the graphic organizer that I use in my classroom the most, and it really helps the kids put the numbers where they go and figure out what operation they need to do. Before kids can solve word problems, they have to understand their math facts, because when it comes to the computation to solve those bigger number sentences, that relies on math fact fluency. They need the ability to solve number sentences accurately. So especially when it comes to regrouping, they need a strategy that works for them every time. Hopefully placed or rooted in place value, and not just remembering a way that they've seen someone else do it. And then they also need to be able to understand when they read a problem, if it's a one-step problem, or if there's more than one step needed to get the answer. So that's like a truckload of things that kids need to be able to do just to solve a word problem. And when grown-ups read word problems, to us it feels like common sense. Like it feels like you should just know, oh, well, obviously these numbers are being put together. Obviously these numbers are being taken apart. But for these kids that are brand new to planet Earth, word problems are probably the highest level thinking you're asking them to do, and it's difficult work. So let's go ahead and discuss some vocabulary that we use when we're discussing word problems. So I use words like joining and separating, because sometimes in a subtraction problem, nothing is going away. Nothing is being taken away or eaten, or like in the movie in their mind, the numbers aren't going anywhere. You might just be comparing two numbers. And so if you separate parts from the whole, then you're going to get the answer. So joining is when you put numbers together and you're adding the operation. Separating is when you take numbers apart, and the operation would be subtraction. I use a strip diagram, which is a graphic organizer that I can put the numbers in to make sense of the problem. I will use the word operation to describe if I'm adding or subtracting to get the answer. Sometimes we talk about start, change, result. So when you read a word problem, if you really can't make a movie in your mind, you might need to talk about what number you start with, what is changing, and what you're ending up with, what the result is. And that's another form of organizing your thinking. Other words I might use are word problem, number, sentence, or even equation, known and unknown, part whole, which is a type of strip diagram, and then kids need to hear if it's a multi-step problem or a one-step problem. These are all words your child is not using in everyday social conversation. So these are words that have to be taught explicitly for them to understand the concept of word problems. Okay, so let's look at our first example of a one-step word problem. Hannah, Savannah, and Miley were having a slumber party. Each girl had 3 cookies. They invited 84 people. 57 people said they could come. How many couldn't come? We need to figure out what we know, what we don't know, and if there's any unnecessary information in this problem. So let's read it again. Hannah, Savannah, and Miley were having a slumber party. Each girl had 3 cookies. They invited 84 people. 57 people said they could come. How many children couldn't come? So I think the first thing is we need to figure out if all of the numbers are important, if all of them are necessary. And we can decide that 3 cookies does not have anything to do with this problem. So we would identify 3 cookies as unnecessary information. So I'm going to write 3 cookies under unnecessary. Okay, and now we have to figure out what we know and what we don't know. So we know that 84 people could come. We know that 57 people said they would come. I'm sorry, they invited 84 people, and 57 people said they could come. So there's 84 total people, and 57 is the part we know. 57 are coming to the sleepover, the slumber party. And so then the only thing that's left is that we have to understand what is unknown. And the unknown is the question at the end. The question is how many people couldn't come. We're trying to figure out how many could not come. Okay, now that we've organized our thoughts, we need to start solving. The way that we would start solving would be by writing a number sentence to match this problem. So I'm starting with 84. That's my start. And I know that 57 people can come. So I have to separate 57 away from 84 to figure out the rest that could not come. And that's what we're trying to solve. Okay, so here's the problem that I just read to you. We know that each girl needing 3 cookies is unnecessary. So I'm going to show you a strip diagram. This is a graphic organizer that helps the kids organize their thoughts before solving. We need to figure out how many parts are in this problem and if we know the whole. The whole is the total amount we're talking about, and we do know that 84 people is the total amount that they invited. And there are 2 parts to this problem. There's the part that said they could come, and then there's the part that couldn't come. So I'm going to fill that in, 57, and then we don't know the other part. That's what we're trying to figure out. So we did step 1 on my anchor chart. We don't have to do step 2 because I don't know more than one part. So we can move on to step 3. To find my final answer, I need to separate the part I know from the whole. And so I'm going to do that using expanded form. If you watched my video on double-digit problem solving, this will look very familiar. I'm going to do 80 plus 4 minus 50 plus 7. I always start in the ones place, and I cannot do 4 minus 7. So I'm going to have to take a 10 from the 80. and it will become 70, and we will move it, we will regroup it over into the ones place. And now we have 14 minus 7, which equals 7. 70 minus 50 equals 20. And 20 plus 7 equals 27. So we solved our one-step problem. Okay, so now we are moving on to a multi-step problem. Otis has 92 dog toys, 23 are squeaky toys, 37 are bones, and the rest are balls. How many are balls? We need to decide what we know and what we don't know. We know that all together, Otis has 92 dog toys. That's total, all together. And then we've got some parts. So 23 are squeaky, 37 are bones, and then the rest are balls. But we don't know how many are balls, so that goes under unknown. We do not know how many, the number of balls that Otis has to play with. That helps us kind of organize our thoughts. Okay, and now we're ready to solve. So let's do another strip diagram and follow the steps. This is a multi-step problem, so there's a lot of parts to it. So let's figure out how many parts and if I know the whole. Squeaky toys, bones, and balls. That's how many parts I have. I know that 92 is the total. Altogether, he has 92. And then I can plug in the parts that I know, and I do not know how many are balls. So I did step 1. Step 2 says put any parts you know together. I do know 2 parts this time. I know 23 plus 37. When I'm putting the parts together, I'm joining them, and I'm figuring out how many parts all together that I know for sure. So let's do 20 plus 3 plus 30 plus 7. 3 plus 7 is 10, 20 plus 30 is 50. If I regroup that 10, that means so far I know Otis has 60 toys. And so now I can do step 3. I can separate the parts from the whole. So separate means subtract. The whole is 92. So 90 plus 2 minus the 60 that we just figured out. We're separating that 60 away to find what's left over. So 90 plus 2 minus 60 plus 0. And we're always going to start in the ones place. 2 minus 0 is 2. 90 minus 60 is 30. 30 plus 2 is 32. So Otis has 32 balls. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know that was a lot of information about how we organize our thinking with both one-step and multi-step problems. I hope I was able to give you a little insight into how we organize and solve problems inside the classroom. And keep watching, because I will come out with a word problems video just for your student next time. Thanks, guys. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please leave a like and a subscribe. It really helps the channel grow, and maybe it'll help other parents help their children with their math homework. We'll see you next time.